Zeus once laughed at the idea of fearing anything. Now his thunderous voice has fallen silent, trapped in an endless nightmare where his greatest regret hunts him through the shadows of his own mind. This is no ordinary myth passed down through generations. It's a curse, one that threatens to unravel the very fabric of divine order. The curse came without warning, spreading like poison through the dreams of the gods. One by one, the mighty Olympians succumbed to an unnatural sleep, their immortal powers flickering like dying flames. Even Hypnos, the master of sleep himself, could not resist its pull, leaving the realm of dreams untamed and chaotic. Storm clouds gather over Mount Olympus, but no god commands them. Lightning strikes at random, scorching the marble temples that once stood proud against the sky. The sacred halls echo with an eerie emptiness as mortals below lose faith, their prayers falling into a void. Without the gods to maintain balance, chaos spreads like wildfire across the mortal world. Apollo's sandals click against the crystalline floor as he approaches his father's throne. The seat of power stands empty, cold to the touch, with only a single scroll lying across its arm. The parchment pulses with an otherworldly glow, its text written in the golden ichor of fallen titans. As Apollo's fingers brush against it, visions flash through his mind. His father, trapped in a maze of mortal flesh and bone. The scroll speaks of ancient magic, older than the titans themselves. Its words whisper of a power that turns immortal strength into weakness, divine wisdom into foolishness. Apollo's hands tremble as he reads further, discovering that each god is imprisoned in a nightmare crafted from their deepest shame. In Zeus's case, the price of pride has become a torment without end. Meanwhile, Artemis tracks an unusual scent through Olympus's gardens. A strange fog creeps between the immortal flowers, carrying the unmistakable scent of mortality. But this is no ordinary mist. It bears the mark of Morpheus, god of dreams, twisted by something far more sinister. With each step, the hunter goddess feels the fog's pull, trying to drag her into the same slumber that has claimed the other gods. The fates themselves appear before the twin archers, their ancient faces grave with concern. They speak in unison, their voices intertwining like threads of destiny. Without divine guidance, mortals will turn upon each other. Wars will consume the earth. The age of gods will end in fire and ruin. The prophecy weighs heavy on Apollo's shoulders as he remembers the countless mortals who have sought his guidance at Delphi. Without the oracle's divine connection, their questions will go unanswered, their paths uncertain. Artemis feels it too, the weakening bond between gods and mortals, like a bowstring slowly unraveling. The twins have witnessed the truth of these words already. In Athens, priests fight over empty temples, each claiming their god still listens. In Sparta, warriors sharpen their spears, but Ares is nowhere to be found to guide their hands. The seas churn violently, yet Poseidon's fury is absent, leaving ships to founder without his command. Crops wither in the fields, untouched by Demeter's nurturing hand, and even the sun seems dimmer, as if Apollo's light is fading with every passing hour. Just as despair begins to choke the world, Hecate emerges from the shadows, her presence as sharp as a blade. The goddess of magic and crossroads raises a warning hand, her eyes glowing with secrets no mortal or god should know. "This curse feeds on divine guilt," she whispers, her voice like the rustle of dead leaves. Each god is trapped in a nightmare of their own making, forced to face the consequences of their pride. To save them, you must enter their dreams and confront not only their demons, but your own. Apollo's lyre hums with discordant notes, each string vibrating with the chaos spreading through Olympus. The once majestic halls echo with a haunting melody, a symphony of despair. Artemis's quiver grows lighter, her arrows losing their divine gleam as the curse threatens to strip away their immortal essence. With a torch in hand, she draws a circle of protection around them, its flames burning black against the marble floor. "Each nightmare is connected," she explains, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "Break one and you might unravel them all. But beware, dreams have their own rules, their own dangers. What kills you there could trap you forever in the same eternal sleep. The twins exchange a glance, their shared history and unspoken fears passing between them in an instant. They've heard the tales of immortals lost in Morpheus's realm, wandering endlessly in dreams that became their reality. But this is different. This curse twists their divine nature against them, using their own immortal power to forge the chains of their imprisonment. Apollo and Artemis know they are the last hope for both the divine and mortal realms. The curse is spreading, and time is running out. As night falls over Olympus, the twins steel themselves to enter the first nightmare, their father's prison of regret. The nightmare realm unfolds before them like a tapestry woven from shadows and sorrow. Zeus, the mighty king of gods, stands not as a radiant ruler, but as a mortal king in a city consumed by flames. His once proud form is bent with age, his immortal glory replaced by the weight of human frailty. The streets that once echoed with prayers and celebrations now ring with the wails of the dying. Zeus stumbles through his crumbling domain, each step heavier than the last, burdened by the consequences of his hubris. The god who once hurled thunderbolts now cannot even lift his arms to comfort a crying child. His subjects, who once built altars in his name, now turn their faces away in disgust. Plague ravages the streets, bodies piling high on the marble steps of temples that were once his pride. The air is thick with the stench of death and the bitter taste of betrayal. You failed us. The voices of his subjects cry out, their accusations echoing in the hollow ruins of his kingdom. You, who claimed to protect us, brought this curse upon our children. Apollo's chest tightens as the truth of this nightmare sinks in. Months ago, he had warned his father of a looming plague, one that could have been prevented if Zeus had only listened. But pride had deafened the king of the gods, and now his guilt rages like a wildfire through this burning city of despair. The memory cuts Apollo deeper than any arrow. He had seen the signs, in the erratic flight of birds, in the cryptic whispers of oracles, in the fraying threads of fate itself. Each warning he brought before Zeus was met with a dismissive wave, a booming laugh that now echoes mockingly through this realm of regret. The cost of that arrogance surrounds them. In every fevered face, every fresh grave, every broken family huddled in the shadows of crumbling temples. Through the chaos, a haunting melody drifts on the wind. Apollo follows it, his steps heavy with purpose, until he finds a younger version of his father. This Zeus, untouched by the Titan war and unburdened by the weight of godhood, sits with a golden lyre in his hands. His music is pure, untainted by the thunderous power he would one day wield. Apollo understands what he must do to break this part of the curse. He must remind his father of the empathy he once carried. The young Zeus's fingers dance across the strings with a grace that seems impossible for the tyrant he would become. In his eyes, Apollo sees not the ruler who commands lightning, but a being who still understands mortal fear, hope, and love. As Apollo prepares to join the duet, Artemis takes up her bow. Shadow wolves circle the edges of the dream, their glowing eyes reflecting Zeus's deepest fear, being overthrown, just as he had overthrown Kronos. Their snarls echo the hunger of the Titan Lord himself. Apollo raises his lyre, his fingers trembling as he begins to play alongside his father's younger self. Their melodies intertwine, weaving tales of divine power and mortal courage. With each note, the plague-stricken citizens pause, their accusations fading into silence. Artemis's arrows fly true, each shot timed to the rhythm of the divine music, driving the shadow wolves back. The duet grows stronger, their music transcending the boundaries of the nightmare. It speaks of redemption, of wisdom born from suffering, of the delicate balance between power and responsibility. Zeus's younger self begins to fade, merging with his mortal form, while the plague-stricken citizens transform. Their cries of blame turn to memories, of storms that brought life, giving rain, of justice delivered by divine hands, of protection granted in moments of greatest need. The music swells to a crescendo, and in that perfect moment, Apollo sees something in his father's expression he hasn't witnessed in millennia. Genuine remorse, not the distant pity of a god, but the raw, human ache of a heart that finally understands the weight of its actions. The flames around them flicker and fade, their destructive dance yielding to the soft glow of dawn. For a moment, it seems they've succeeded. Zeus's mortal form straightens, recognition flickering in his eyes. The burning city begins to dissolve, replaced by the familiar halls of Olympus. His throne reforms from the ashes, its power restored. The twin archers exchange wary glances, knowing this victory feels too easy, too clean for a curse forged in Titan blood. The throne pulses with an energy that feels wrong, darker, more ancient than Zeus's divine might. Artemis notches an arrow, her instincts screaming of a trap, but before she can loose it, the nightmare twists. Instead of Zeus reclaiming his seat, Apollo is pulled toward the throne. Its call is irresistible, a voice that echoes with Prometheus's mocking laughter. As Apollo struggles against its pull, the world shifts again, and a new nightmare begins to unfold. In Athena's nightmare, wisdom becomes a weapon that turns on its wielder. Apollo and Artemis find themselves in endless corridors, their walls adorned with tapestries that writhe and breathe like living things. Each weaving tells a story of Athena's supposed wisdom, but the threads bleed truth through their carefully crafted lies. The tapestries pulse with divine energy, each one a window into Athena's guarded memories. The twins move cautiously, knowing that in dreams, even memories can strike like vipers. They pass scenes of great battles where Athena's strategies won impossible victories. But beneath the golden thread lies a darker truth, the cost of those victories in mortal lives. The twins pause before a tapestry depicting Medusa's transformation. But this version reveals what history forgot: Medusa, kneeling before Athena, offering herself as a willing sacrifice. "Keep our secret," the goddess whispers in the weaving. "Poseidon must never know of our alliance." The snake-haired curse wasn't punishment, it was concealment. Apollo's prophetic sight pierces deeper into the dream's fabric. He sees Athena whispering in Odysseus's ear, not guidance but manipulation. Her strategic genius leaves a trail of broken heroes, each one a stepping stone to maintain her reputation as the wisest of the gods. The truth unravels before them. Wisdom without compassion is merely clever cruelty. The air grows thick with the scent of old scrolls and forgotten promises. Apollo traces his fingers along a tapestry, showing the fall of Troy, feeling the texture of deceit woven into every fiber. The wooden horse wasn't just a strategy. It was a betrayal of the very honor Athena claimed to uphold. Warriors who prayed for her blessing died believing in glory, never knowing they were sacrificed for divine politics. Artemis stops before a haunting tapestry, one that shows Athena teaching mortals the art of warfare. The tapestry shimmers with an eerie glow, its threads not just depicting strategies of war, but sowing the seeds of endless conflict. Each lesson woven into its fabric carries the weight of future battles, generations of mortals destined to kill one another with knowledge gifted by the gods. Artemis's hand trembles as she realizes the truth. Wisdom, in the wrong hands, becomes a blade that cuts through centuries. Deeper into the labyrinth, they find Arachne, not the spider of legend, but a woman bound by threads of guilt and regret. Her fingers still move, weaving patterns that expose the hypocrisy of the divine. "She imprisoned me here," Arachne confesses, her voice bitter. "Not because I won our contest, but because I saw through her lies." Artemis understands what must be done. The labyrinth isn't just a maze, it's Athena's loom, writ large, weaving the very fabric of reality. To free the goddess from her nightmare, they must destroy the tool she uses to maintain her illusions. But Athena's power runs deep, and every thread they sever threatens to ensnare them instead. Artemis and Apollo exchange a knowing glance. Every divine dream holds a core truth, and this one screams of redemption. Artemis draws her silver bow, aiming at the central spindle of the cosmic loom. "Sometimes wisdom means knowing when to let go," she murmurs, her arrow glowing with moonlight. Apollo readies his golden bow beside her, understanding that this shot must pierce more than the physical. It must strike at the heart of Athena's pride. The dream space shudders as their divine power builds. The walls of the labyrinth pulse with ancient magic, resisting their interference. Threads of fate and destiny twist through the air, struggling to preserve the elaborate deception Athena has built around herself. But truth, like moonlight and sunlight combined, cannot be contained forever. With Archene's reluctant aid, they begin to dismantle the loom. Each broken thread releases a memory, Athena weeping over fallen heroes, her regret at using them as pawns, her fear that wisdom without love is hollow. The tapestries unravel, revealing simpler truths beneath their grand deceptions. The unraveling accelerates, cascading through the labyrinth like falling stars. Each severed thread releases not just memories, but understanding. They see Athena as she truly is, not just the goddess of wisdom, but a daughter desperate to prove herself worthy of Olympus. Her greatest fear was never being wrong, but being seen as fallible, the perfect strategist, trapped by her own need for perfection. In those final moments, they witness Athena's most closely guarded secret, her envy of Artemis's freedom and Apollo's creativity. The goddess of wisdom had always believed that perfect judgment required perfect control. But watching the twins move in harmony, she begins to understand that true wisdom flows from the heart as much as the mind. The realization breaks through her defenses like dawn-piercing storm clouds. As the final thread snaps, Athena emerges before them, no longer the unyielding goddess of wisdom, but a young woman burdened by the weight of her choices. The labyrinth crumbles around them, and in its collapse, they catch a glimpse of the next nightmare forming, an endless, shadowed ocean where Poseidon's guilt roils beneath the surface. The sea stretches vast and unnervingly still, its dark waters hiding secrets that churn in the depths. Here, in Poseidon's nightmare, they find him, not as the commanding god of the seas, but as a humble fisherman, his hands trembling as he mends his nets. His gaze never leaves the horizon, searching for something lost beneath the waves. Below the surface, the seabed is littered with the wreckage of countless ships, merchant vessels, fishing boats, and warships alike, each one a testament to moments when Poseidon's rage eclipsed his wisdom, when his storms claimed lives in fits of divine fury. Now, in this twisted dream, their ghostly forms rise and fall with the waves, a haunting graveyard of his past mistakes. A child's laughter echoes across the water. Young Triton, not yet the mighty herald of the seas, plays among the waves. But this is no joyful memory. It's a guilt-ridden illusion. Poseidon knows what comes next. The storm builds without warning, waves surging like mountains. The sea god watches, powerless in his mortal form, as his own powers turn against his son. "I caused this," Poseidon whispers, his voice breaking. "Every storm, every shipwreck, they were all my children. I drowned them all." The truth of his nightmare becomes clear. Every mortal lost at sea was someone's child, and their blood stains his hands. The weight of centuries presses down on him, each wave bringing the faces of those he failed to protect. Sailors who prayed for safe passage, fishermen who made offerings at his temples, children who played innocently in his domain. In his mortal form, he feels their loss as acutely as any human father would. The pain is no longer distant and divine, it's immediate and raw. Above, Apollo's chariot breaks through the storm clouds, its searing heat cutting through the darkness. He could evaporate this dream, ocean, freeing Poseidon from his torment. But young Triton still swims in these waters. To destroy the nightmare would mean destroying this shadow of his son. The sun god's light reveals something else in the depths, the spirits of sea nymphs, once Poseidon's loyal subjects, now drifting like lost souls. They reach out with ethereal hands, their voices joining in a chorus of remembered grief. These were his attendants, his counselors, sometimes even his lovers, all witnesses to his capricious nature, all bearing scars from his stormy moods. Their cold touch sends flashes of memory through him, moments when he could have shown mercy, but chose wrath instead. Yet among these shades moves something else, something more substantial. Young Triton thrashes against the relentless current, his small frame nearly swallowed by the chaos of his father's regret. Artemis watches, her sharp eyes narrowing as she sees another path. Without hesitation, she leaps into the churning waters, her divine form shifting seamlessly. Where the goddess once stood, a sleek seal now cuts through the waves with purpose. She finds Triton trapped in a whirlpool, a cruel reflection of how Poseidon's pride and neglect endanger those closest to him. Battling the current, Artemis guides the boy to the surface. Triton clings to her as she brings him to his father, Poseidon reaches out, his hands trembling, not the hands of a god, but those of a simple fisherman. For a moment, he hesitates, unsure of himself. But when he finally embraces his son, the storm begins to quiet. In that embrace, memories flood Poseidon's mind, not of his divine triumphs, but of the moments he missed. Teaching Triton to command the tides, watching him grow into his power, being not just a ruler of the seas but a father. The mortal hands he once despised now feel like a gift, allowing him to hold his son without the cold barrier of divinity. The nightmare loosens its grip, and the sea itself seems to exhale. Dolphins, whales, and ancient leviathans rise to the surface in a solemn procession, their movements slow and reverent. They bow their heads, not just to their lord's power, but to his newfound understanding. For aeons, Poseidon ruled through fear and force, but here, in this moment of vulnerability, he discovers a different kind of strength. The waves calm, mirroring the peace settling over his heart. But the respite is short-lived. The ocean darkens, its waters thickening into a deep, unnatural red. The metallic stench of divine ichor fills the air. This is no longer Poseidon's nightmare alone. Something far darker bleeds through. Hera's dream of loss and betrayal. Seeping in like a crimson tide, golden walls rise from the bloody sea, forming the gilded prison of her perfection. Here, Hera wears a mortal queen's crown, heavy with jewels but stripped of divine power. Zeus lies beside her on silk sheets, his immortality gone, his breath shallow and fading. Each step she takes echoes through marble halls that mock her with their flawless beauty. Tapestries depicting her triumphant marriage to Zeus now shift, whispering accusations of her failures. The scenes change, revealing not the mighty queen she pretends to be, but the wounded immortal beneath. Servants scatter before her, their mortal faces mirroring the fear her own children once wore. In her arms, Hera cradles a still bundle wrapped in royal purple. No divine light glows from within, no cry breaks the silence. This is her deepest shame made real, a child born without the spark of divinity, a reflection of her greatest fear. Without Zeus, she cannot create life that endures. I could have loved him, Hera whispers, her voice trembling. For the first time, Apollo and Artemis witness tears fall from the Queen of Heaven's eyes. The bundle shifts, revealing the twisted legs of an infant Hephaestus. Not the god he would become, but the child she cast from Olympus in her pride and shame. The memory of that day lingers like a shadow, his small hands reaching for her as he fell, his cries fading into the clouds below. Now, in this nightmare, she cannot escape the weight of that choice. The walls of her palace pulse, with each beat of her breaking heart, the golden light flickering like a feverish pulse. Apollo steps forward, his radiant light revealing the truth hidden in the palace's shadow. Every golden surface reflects Hera's regret, not for her marriage to Zeus, but for the love she denied her own children. Each mirror shows a different moment, Ares seeking approval through violence, Hebe fading into obscurity, Hephaestus finding solace in his forge. Artemis approaches her stepmother cautiously, but Hera's eyes suddenly gleam with ancient cunning. You could stay, she offers, her voice dripping with temptation. Eternal youth, eternal maidenhood, never to fade, never to fear loss. All you must do is leave your brother to face these nightmares alone. Behind Hera's words lies a deeper truth. Her eternal youth has become a curse, forcing her to watch generation after generation slip away. In Artemis, she sees a reflection of her younger self. Before the weight of divine marriage and motherhood twisted her love into possession. The queen's fingers trace patterns in the air, weaving threads of power that shimmer with promise and danger. The offer hangs in the air like poisoned fruit. Artemis feels its pull, the promise of freedom from responsibility, from the pain of watching mortals and loved ones die. But in Hera's eyes, she sees the same loneliness that haunts the queen's reflection. A discordant laugh shatters the moment. The golden walls crack, revealing Eris, goddess of discord, weaving through the shadows. How perfectly they dance to our tune, she mocks, her form shifting between light and darkness. The mighty gods of Olympus, trapped by their own guilt, their own fears, Eris circles them like a predator, each step leaving cracks in reality that spread like spiderwebs across the palace floors. Did you think your perfect family would last forever? She taunts, her voice echoing from every direction at once. Even gods must face their lies. The air grows heavy with the stench of decay, as if Hera's dream realm is rotting from within. Apollo reaches for his bow, but his arrows pass through Eris like smoke, each miss revealing another layer of Hera's fractured relationships. In this twisted dreamscape, Artemis sees the truth behind Hera's actions, not just jealousy or pride, but a desperate need to protect what she claims as her own. The Queen of Heaven's power has always been tied to family, to marriage, to the bonds between immortals. Yet these same bonds have become chains, each link forged from moments of cruelty disguised as love. The goddess of marriage stands revealed as both jailer and prisoner, her perfect palace a monument to countless bitter victories. The palace begins to crumble, its flawless surfaces peeling away to expose the rot beneath. Hera clutches her stillborn child tighter, her queenly mask shattering to reveal a mother's grief. But before Apollo and Artemis can reach her, the scene dissolves into chaos, reality warping as Eris's influence spreads through the divine dreamscape. The twins exchange a knowing glance as understanding dawns. Eris hasn't created these nightmares. She's merely exposed what was already there. Festering beneath centuries of divine pride, the goddess of discord grins, her teeth glinting in the fading light, as she watches the truth of her manipulation sink in. She has done nothing but hold up a mirror to the gods' own nature, letting their guilt do the rest. The perfect family of Olympus was always an illusion, as fragile as the dreams now collapsing around them. Apollo never meant to cross into his sister's dream. One moment, he was chasing Eris's shadow through the ruins of Hera's nightmare. The next, he stood in a moonlit forest he knew all too well. This was where Orion died, where everything changed for Artemis. The air shimmers with silver light as his sister stalks through the ancient trees, bow drawn, hunting something that isn't there. But Apollo sees the truth in her tense shoulders, in the way her steps falter. She's not hunting, she's running. Sister, he calls out, but his voice sounds strange here, distorted by the dream's power. Artemis whirls, her arrows suddenly aimed at his heart. In her eyes, he sees not recognition but the wild fear of a cornered animal. You killed him, she snarls, the accusation heavy with centuries of pain. I loved him, and you couldn't bear it. The arrow flies, grazing Apollo's cheek. Divine ichor drips gold in the moonlight. The forest darkens as storm clouds gather overhead, mirroring Artemis's rage. Each tree seems to bend away from her fury, branches creaking like old bones. Apollo remembers the day Orion died, how the moon itself seemed to weep silver tears. He had convinced himself it was for the best, that his sister would thank him one day. But watching her now, centuries of pain etched into every line of her face, Apollo realizes the true cost of his pride, not just to himself, but to her. This is what you fear most, he says, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Not losing your independence, but losing yourself to save others. Another arrow whizzes past, closer this time, but Apollo doesn't flinch. You've spent eternity holding yourself apart, sister, even from me. Artemis notches a third arrow, her hands trembling. I am the huntress. I need no one, she declares, but her voice cracks, betraying the lie. Apollo's fingers find the strings of his lyre, and the first notes of Orion's favorite song drift through the dream forest, a melody of stars and silver light. It's the song Orion would sing during their hunts, when even Artemis would pause, her bow lowering as she listened. Apollo remembers watching them from afar, jealousy twisting in his chest. Now, he plays it as an offering, each note an apology for the fear that once drove him. He taught you this song, Apollo says, his fingers moving effortlessly over the strings, not to tame you, but because he saw your loneliness. Just as I do, the bow slips from Artemis's hands, clattering to the ground. She crumples to her knees, the nightmare's grip on her breaking. I couldn't save him, she whispers, her voice raw. I can't save any of them. The mortals, the hunters, they all fade while I remain. Her words hang heavy in the air, thick with centuries of grief. Apollo understands now why his sister chose the moon, always shifting, yet forever constant, touching the world with silver light, but never truly part of it. Just as he chose the sun, burning bright, but forever distant, watching but never belonging. Time flows differently for immortals, a blessing and a curse. They watch generations rise and fall like waves on a shore, each leaving marks on their hearts before fading away. Artemis had chosen to distance herself, to hunt alone rather than face that pain again. But isolation had become its own prison. One Apollo had watched her build stone by stone. He kneels beside her, the layer's song fading into silence. "That's why we have each other," he says softly. "Two sides of the same sky, remember. Light and shadow, sun and moon. Their hands meet, and in that moment, understanding floods through them. Their bond, the perfect balance of opposing forces, isn't their weakness. It's the key to breaking the curse that holds Olympus. Together, they rise, their powers intertwining like threads of gold and silver, day and night, light and shadow. They were never meant to be separate. Each dream they've faced has revealed fragments of a larger truth. The gods' greatest weakness isn't their pride or their power, but their fear of being truly known. As their combined strength surges through the nightmare realm, the curse's hold begins to falter. The truth strikes them both at once. Every nightmare they've faced has been a mirror of this single, undeniable reality. Zeus, trapped in his guilt, Athena bound by her secrets, Poseidon, drowning in his regrets, and Hera imprisoned in her loneliness. Each god had carried their burdens alone, believing strength lay in isolation. But true power, they realize, comes not from solitude, but from the courage to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be understood. As Apollo and Artemis's powers intertwine, they feel the echoes of every god's pain, every immortal heart crying out for connection. But before they can act, the forest around them dissolves. In its place rises a jagged mountain of chains and eagle feathers, and at its peak stands a figure they recognize from ancient prophecies, Prometheus, the titan who gave fire to mankind, now ready to burn the gods themselves. He looms above them, his chains transformed into weapons, each link forged from the regrets of the gods. "Welcome, children of Zeus," he sneers, eagle feathers falling like burning rain. "Have you enjoyed watching your family suffer as mortals suffer? You're the architect," Apollo says, the pieces falling into place, the dream cursed, the nightmares. "You've been feeding their guilt all along. And why shouldn't I?" Prometheus's voice thunders across the dreamscape. "For centuries, I hung from that cliff, my liver torn daily by Zeus's eagles, while Olympus feasted. You made mortals suffer. Now you will feel their pain." The mountain beneath them shifts, transforming into a realm of living fire. Apollo sees prophecies dancing in the flames, countless futures where gods and mortals alike burn. Yet, amidst the chaos, glimmers of hope flicker. A path forward, if he's brave enough to take it. The flames twist into the shapes of mortals he once healed, their faces contorted in agony. Each prophecy burns brighter than the last, showing him visions of cities reduced to ash, plagues left unchecked, heroes who fell because the gods were too proud to intervene. Apollo feels their suffering as if it were his own, finally understanding the depth of Prometheus's torment. Artemis moves like moonlight, her arrows finding cracks in Prometheus's defenses. But for every chain she shatters, two more rise in its place. "Brother," she calls out, her voice sharp with urgency. "He's not alone!" From the shadows emerges a darker threat, Kronos' shade, feeding on the Titan's ancient grudge. The shadow, Titan grows with every god's nightmare it consumes, its scythe slicing through reality itself. Apollo draws his bow, but prophecy floods his mind instead. He sees the pattern, the way out. "Artemis!" The shadow fears being forgotten. Like all Titans do, his sister understands instantly. She begins a hunter's chant, ancient names spilling from her lips. Not the Titans' grand titles, but their first names, their mortal names, from a time before they chose godhood. With each true name spoken, Kronos' shade flickers, its form wavering as the weight of forgotten memory takes hold. The names echo through the dreamscape. Menouidios, Epimetheus, Dion, each syllable heavy with the weight of forgotten history. The shadow, Titan writhes as its grandeur dissolves, stripped back to what it was before divinity claimed it. Artemis's voice grows stronger with each name, her arrows now tipped with silvery memory instead of moonlight. Meanwhile, Apollo faces Prometheus, but not with weapons. "You gave mortals fire," he says, lowering his bow. "Let me give you freedom." He reaches for his own divine light, his immortality burning bright. "Take it. Break your chains with my power." Prometheus falters. "You would sacrifice your godhood. For what? For understanding?" Apollo answers, "Isn't that what you wanted to teach us all along?" The Titan's chains begin to crack, not from violence, but from choice. Apollo's sacrifice mirrors Prometheus's own gift to humanity. Power freely given, not taken. The fire realm trembles as ancient grudges begin to fade. The flames around them shift, their vengeful red softening into a warm gold, like the fire Prometheus first gifted to humanity. In its light, Apollo sees reflections of every mortal who ever prayed to him, those who sought healing, prophecy, or simple guidance. He understands now that divinity without compassion is merely power, and power without purpose is nothing but chains. But before the exchange can complete, Artemis cries out in warning. The shadow of Kronos makes one final lunge, not at them, but at the threads of the dream itself. If it succeeds, the sleeping gods will never wake. Apollo and Artemis move as one, their twin powers combining, sunlight and moonlight, prophecy and hunt, creating something new, something human. Their shared light pierces the shadow, and Kronos' shade dissolves into memory. Prometheus stands unbound, Apollo's offered power glowing between them. But instead of taking it, the Titan smiled. Perhaps some gods can learn after all. He turns to Hecate, who has appeared silently at the dream's edge. The Titans remember this mercy. He tells her softly, "They will not show any." The dream realm shudders one final time, reality bending as the curse begins to unravel. Fragments of other gods, nightmares drift past like autumn leaves. Zeus's lightning turned to ash. Poseidon's storms frozen in mid-wave, Athena's wisdom twisted into endless questions. Each piece carries a lesson learned, a pride humbled, a truth finally faced. As the fragments settle, they crystallize into a new understanding. The gods' power was never meant to be a barrier between them and mortals, but a bridge. Each nightmare faced has carved a path toward empathy, toward the delicate balance between divine power and human understanding. The dream begins to fade, but not before Apollo catches a glimpse of his sister's face and sees his own mortality reflected there. Some sacrifices, even when refused, leave permanent marks. Dawn breaks over Olympus, but the light feels different. Softer, more fragile, almost mortal. The gods stir, their eyes shadowed by the nightmares they've endured. Zeus sits on his throne, but his posture has shifted. The arrogance is gone, replaced by something quieter, more reflective. "My children," he says, his voice heavy with a newfound humility as he addresses Apollo and Artemis. "You've saved us, but at what cost?" His gaze lingers on Apollo, noticing the faint dimming of his son's divine glow. Athena steps forward, her usual composure cracked by raw emotion. "I feel changed," she admits. "The wisdom I once claimed feels hollow now, compared to what I've learned in that nightmare." She turns to the assembled gods, her voice steady, but laced with regret. "I have a confession to make. About Medusa, about Poseidon, about the lies I've woven to protect my pride." Zeus raises his hand, not to silence her, but to acknowledge her words. "We've all worn masks of perfection for too long, daughter. Perhaps it's time we learn from those we once looked down upon." The words seem to pain him, but he continues. "The mortals, they live with these feelings every day: fear, regret, hope." Poseidon nods, the storm in his eyes now a gentle rain. "My son Triton, I must speak with him. These mortal emotions, they've made me understand what it means to be a father." Hera stands beside her husband's throne, no longer in her usual position of subservience. "Our power may be diminished," she says, her voice softer than before, "but perhaps we're stronger for it. When I look at Hephaestus now, I feel love, pure love, untainted by divine pride. The change ripples through Olympus like waves on a still pond. Minor deities and nymphs whisper among themselves, some fearful, others intrigued by this newfound vulnerability in their rulers. The Muses find their songs carrying deeper emotion, their poetry touching hearts in ways they never could before. Even the satyrs and centaurs sense it, a shift in the very fabric of divine existence. In the mortal world below, priests and oracles report strange dreams, visions of gods who weep and laugh like humans. Apollo moves through the throne room, each step slightly heavier than before. He hasn't told them about the price. How his bargain with Prometheus, though unfulfilled, left a mark. His immortality flickers like a candle in the wind. But when he catches Artemis's eye, he sees understanding there. She knows. "Brother," she whispers, taking his hand. Their twin bond pulses stronger than ever, mortal emotions making it richer, deeper. We face this together. In the shadows of Olympus, where ancient magic lingers, Hecate receives a visitor. Prometheus emerges from the darkness, his chains gone but their memory etched into his flesh. "You played your part well," he tells her. "The gods needed this lesson, but the Titans." He glances toward the distant horizon, where storm clouds gather. They remember this mercy, and when they rise again, they will show none in return. The words linger, heavy with prophecy. As the remaining Titans, those ancient rulers dethroned by Zeus, watch from the shadows of Tartarus, though their bodies remain imprisoned. Their influence seeps through the cracks of reality, patient as stone, relentless as time. On stormy nights, some swear they hear their laughter in the thunder, mocking the gods' newfound vulnerability. Hecate's eyes glint with secrets. "Perhaps this was always the plan," she murmurs. "Gods who feel as mortals do might fight harder to protect them." Above, Apollo guides the sun across the sky, each journey now a fragile gift, each dawn a reminder of what he can no longer take for granted. Beside him, Artemis steers the moon, their celestial dance a testament to bonds that even change cannot sever. Zeus watches his children, his ancient gaze softened by the dawning of a new era. "We are no longer just gods," he declares, his voice resonating through the halls of Olympus. "We are something new, something more." The declaration ripples through the divine realm, altering the very fabric of divine law. Even the fates pause in their weaving, sensing a pattern they had not foreseen. This union of immortal power and mortal heart births something unprecedented. Beings who carry the weight of eternity, yet understand the fleeting beauty of a single moment. Perhaps this is what the prophecies meant by the twilight of the gods, not an end, but a transformation. Below, the mortal world continues its cycle of life and death, unaware that their deities now share their burdens, their fears, their capacity for love and loss. Olympus stands forever changed, its marble halls echoing with divine laughter that, for the first time, carries genuine joy. But far beyond, in the depths of Tartarus, the Titans stir. Their prison may hold them, but their patience is as vast as the void. They wait, always waiting for the moment when the balance shifts once more.